Alrighty, howdy y'all, and welcome back to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine. I'm Chastin.
And I'm Christina. And all right, so today I wanted to talk about, I'm in yoga teacher training. We are reading this book here, Stephen Cope, The Great Work of Your Life, the guide for the journey to your true calling. Highly recommend it. We're only allowed to go through like certain chapters at a time. And what it consists of is like multiple people in here, people we all know. The first one I read was Jane Goodall. Love her. So, yeah. But I want to talk about this today because what it is, the main theme behind it is Dharma. And Dharma is a Sanskrit word that means many things. It's like our purpose, their truth, our sacred duty, or like our path in life. So Dharma is really our unique way of expressing our soul into the world. Like we all came here unique. And we can have multiple different dharmas. Yeah.
Like one person can have multiple dharmas.
Yep. Because if you think of it, like we could sometimes, like a mother has a child, that is part of their dharma. And then plus they are also, say, a healer, or they are like Jane Goodall. What was her dharma? To care for animals, to research animals, to do so much work to help. I don't know how to describe everything that Jane Goodall did, but we all know her of like everything that she's done. Like that was a huge part of her dharma. So we can have multiple dharmas, multiple purposes in life, I should say.
That makes sense. I don't know why that seemed like, oh, you could have more than one. I don't know why. I think because when we talk about life paths a lot, it's almost like one, like the big life path. But I like that they mention you can have multiple ones, which makes more sense, like multiple purposes. We're like the Swiss Army knives.
The Swiss Army knives of species.
Be a Swiss Army knife, have multiple purposes.
And sometimes we're Swiss cheese.
Or Swiss chocolate cake.
Yeah. So the reason I want to bring up this Dharma today is, for me, it's because I love the book so much. So in this book, Stephen Cope, he speaks about many people spending years chasing achievements, statuses, approval, those external definitions of success will go undeeply fulfilled because we're chasing something that's not really ours. We think we have to do this, we have to have a status, I have to have the biggest house on the block. I have to do remodeling, and I got to be like the Joneses next door. My yard's got to be straight green with no weeds in it. So it's like things like that. We keep putting expectations on ourselves that are not ours.
And trying to meet the status quo.
Yes. And that comes from so many different things. Our upbringing, our ancestral patterns, the expectations of what were put on us when we were in school, what good grades, because we need to do this to be able to go to college so you can make a living, because this is what you're supposed to do, right? But sometimes that's not in alignment with what that person is. And so sometimes they go, okay, I will listen to others, listen to the status quo of what people are doing out there, or their siblings or parents, or just what they see on social media, but it's not in alignment with them. So like this book really gets you to this point to actually look at where you're at, and in a very safe space way. Like when I looked at mine, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am really close to living within my Dharma. There are some things I don't like, but those are survival things, like my job. It's not quite in alignment with who I am, but what it does is supports me to be able to move forward, to complete those aspects of my Dharma.
I think it's wonderful that you bring that up because it's a very sincere and a very real thing. We can have our life purpose, and the way that we're able to move towards it and achieve it, there may be quote unquote the ideal timeline, but then there's reality of current, we live in a capitalistic society, and depending on the area that we live in and things like that, we have to be honest with kind of what our options are at this time. And that there's a certain like, there is purpose with it because it's helping bring you closer to your purpose too. Do you think at that point, maybe for people, like, looking at that job as a tool to bring them closer to their purpose would be fair to
Yeah.
consider it?
Yes, because I know 100%, because I know how people will be like, "This job is not me. This is not my
Mhm.
job. This is not what I feel like I'm here to do." And that's okay. It is really okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. Like, accept that, because that is an anchor to propel you towards your dharma, with
Yeah.
that, that financial stability to get to where you need to be.
Let me tell you, financial stability is a gift.
Mhm.
Like, and it's so sad how so many people don't have that. And it's a huge gift to have, or to it's a huge, it can take off a lot of weight when you have financial stability. And at the end of the day, we live in a material world. Like, we are spiritual creatures and we are also physical creatures living in a material world. And I've known of people who wanted to go back to bartering, and I'm like, y'all ain't never bartered then, because
Like
it's
nothing.
really hard to measure, like, and people, I feel like, it can be really hard to measure that system of, like, how much food for what type of service, and people end up being dissatisfied with that too, because they may still feel like they're giving too much or not receiving enough or whatever. So, anyway, that was a side trip.
All right.
That's part of my dharma.
We're bringing it back.
Right? Are side quests be part of dharma? Because I feel like I've got that down pat.
Yes.
And tangents.
Yes. That is part of it. That is part of the whole unique purpose. Yeah.
Unique self.
Yep. Sometimes when we don't know, so there's another thing that came in this book. Sometimes we don't know what our dharma is, and I think we make it harder on ourselves than what we have to in figuring out what it is. So we have to look at what do we long to do at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day? And what are we curious about? What are our gifts? What are we compassionate about? Also, intuition, and using that intuition and what actually resonates within us when we're doing that thing. And you're like, oh, that is so me. Then that is your dharma. That is part of it. Doesn't have to be the whole thing, but that is part of it.
When you say gifts to you, do you think it's the things that we're able to do easily or almost effortlessly, or almost that, because there are people who have certain talents, like music, for example. There are people who can just pick up an instrument and just start playing. Like, nothing. Like, or they take to it, or they have the passion for it. Playing the piano, I have tried 5 or 6 times. I do not enjoy it. I've tried, and I've had wonderful teachers, but it just wasn't my thing, versus I know people who they love it. Like, even though they still had to practice, they still had to put in the time, the effort, everything to get better at it. They were just enjoyed it so much. So do you feel like that can be a cue for a person too,
Hmm.
as to what their dharma is? Either they pick up on it easily, and or they just do it and they're like, "Yes, this," like you said, it fulfills something in them.
Yeah, it brings it that excitement because I
Yeah.
know that musical side. So when I'm in that space, oh, I already know that is my dharma because I feel whole and complete and excited, and I never want to leave that space. That's for me where I know that is a part of my dharma. It's a big reason that I'm here. But I think like what you were saying, like even people that are gifted in certain things, like you're saying piano or other instruments, band instruments, it does take practice. It's not automatic. Most some people have that. What do they call that?
Like prodigies.
Yeah, some people do have that. Maybe
They're
like
perfect.
1% of people, but as long as it brings joy, that practice is totally worth it. Totally
Well,
worth
and
it.
I will say, like, so when we were talking about, I guess, tools to get you somewhere, it forced me to learn how to read music. And like I said, piano was not my thing. But because of the music aspect, it was easier for me to pick up playing the trombone, and it was easier for me to pick up playing the bass guitar, and those were a lot of fun. Those I actually enjoyed, had a lot of fun with. I really haven't played much now. But those things I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, I could totally just play on my own, and this is enjoyable." Like you were talking about, it was still work, and it was still practice, and all that stuff, and I had to strengthen all sorts of muscles and the rhythms and coordination, but and I guess I bring that up where your Dharma, it may be that category of something, but you have to play around with what exactly that looks like. So you may have to play around with what instrument you use because
And I
it
think
may be
go ahead.
well, because it's like in my family, it was one of those you always played the piano, like, that's what everybody did, and like you talked about opening up this episode where sometimes if we look at everybody else and what everybody else is doing, and we're comparing ourselves, like, "Oh, well, I'm not doing that, so what gives? Because I know I wanna do music, but what gives? Because I cannot get passionate about playing this instrument." And so maybe it's having to you're in the right what is it? You're in the right category, but not in the right subset of that category?
It's like that like I was gonna say creativity, that whole
Yes.
thing of creativity. And there could be multiple different things in there. Like you said, it doesn't have to be the piano. It could be the guitar, the trombone, the French horn, the flute,
Mhm.
you know,
The piccolo.
the piccolo. It could be, it's just like whatever really, like what you said, it's like you just enjoyed playing those instruments, pure enjoyment. And at the end of the day, not for something, of course, sometimes like when we're professional musicians, we have to do it for something because we have a deadline to hit or things of that, or someone's expecting us to do that, but it's still we feel that resonate within us like, "Oh, this is home."
Well, and I think with bands, it's also I know I really enjoyed the low brass section, like, I enjoyed the people in it. So it was for myself, but it was also, like, it was camaraderie in that community with the low brass group, and then for the marching band as a whole. So it was like, I felt that way for myself and my individual relationship with it, and then the low brass section I was in, and really even the trombone section that I was in. I mean, it was wonderful. And then, like you said, the band as a whole, and then of course we did it for the glory of competitions. But it was it was just fun across the board, like both from an individual and a community aspect. It was like fulfilling. That's why I did it, you know, for all 4 years that I was in high school. Like it just was super fun. And I
Yeah.
was very, very sad when I graduated and
And you're like, "What now?"
what now? I ain't that the truth.
Yeah.
Did they bring up, like, temporary dharmas? Is that a thing? Or
Um,
have you gotten that far?
I haven't gotten that far.
That'll be interesting to see if they bring that up because I wonder if
Yeah.
some things in life we're meant to do temporarily, or at least in that way, like, in that way that we're expressing it, and so having to kinda grieve that change,
Mhm.
like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good I'll keep us posted if
That's
there are
right.
temporary dharmas. Okay, so we kinda discussed of, like, where we kinda see where we can kind of see where our dharmas are and where they can come through from to us. What else? And we talked a little bit about, like, living someone else's dharma, that put upon
Yeah.
us dharma. So that's one of those central themes in his book is that the suffering increases when we try to live according to someone else's path. So that means that's when we suffer more when like there's a part in this book where there's a kid in here and he's going to preschool. He's young. He tells his mom, like this is his mom's like, "Yes, you're going to go to be a priest." But then he plays, I forget, I think it's the piano. Amazing organ. Like this is he's shining. He's shining. Like this is what he wants to do. So he tells his mom like, "Hey, like I'm playing all these concerts in school. Like I really want to be a part still in within the church, but this." And she's like, "No, God wanted you to be here to be a priest, and you will serve him, and I know this is what you want." And he was like, "Wow, okay." So his heart was broke. He was little. I wanna say like 7 or 8. Then he went to school and he talked to one of the nuns, which he wanted to just say, like, how sad he was, like, "Hey, I really wanted to maybe do this for, a living, be part of the musical part in the churches, instead of going to priesthood school." And the nun's like, "You are gonna be such a wonderful priest." So right there, you have 2 people that didn't back what he really wanted to do, didn't hear him. So he lived this, he went through, and of course, he went and did that, and he was miserable. Not that I it wasn't he was miserable serving as a priest, he was miserable because he felt that longing inside of him to really be in this area, is to create that musical background within the churches instead of just with the priest 100% in the priesthood. So it's just taking into consideration that we need to be in alignment with ourselves and try to really work on making sure we don't sacrifice what our purposes are and what we want to do for someone else's thoughts or ideas or expectations. And sometimes they're not intentional. They're not intentional from the other people or the other things, but it's us to be very mindful to make sure we stay in alignment with who we are and to honor ourselves and to be authentic for ourselves.
Did he end up going and being a musician?
He did.
Yay! I'm like, "Don't leave me hanging."
He did. So he went through the whole priesthood school thing and everything. And he was doing this for a while, but then all of a sudden he's like, "This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. Like I'm missing something still." And that was the musical aspect of it, is playing organ. And he was phenomenal. He's phenomenal at it. Yeah. Well,
Well, and so that's an example of someone telling a person how to live their life. What about, do you feel like social media does it more? Well, I mean, sometimes it is more aggressively, like, you have people who are like, "Live the life I live, but listen to my podcast to live my life, or buy my courses so you can live by the same life I have. And if you're not living the life I'm living, then you're not a real," typically we hear, "You're not a real man," or "You're not a real woman," like, so, but do you feel like, obviously the aggressive side, but what about the passive side too in social media? Like, where they're just showing all the time, "Oh, look at this happy couple that is doing this, and this." And, "Oh, well, if I want to be happy, so I must copy the things that they're doing, have wear the clothes that they wear or whatever, so I can be happy too." Like, do you feel like those things, both the aggressive side and the passive side, like, really influence a person
I
and
think
their dharma?
and even not even categorizing it is passive or aggressive versions of
Like,
what's that?
influencing?
Yeah, influencing on social media and things of that nature. I think just in general, and even TV and film, things of that. But it's more, I see more in social media of kind of like what you said, like, "Hey, to live this life, to be successful, buy my course, do this. This is how you become a millionaire." Okay, but hold on. Is our dharma here to be a millionaire? Or are we here to serve somebody, serve ourselves, serve something for the greatest good of humankind, whatever that is? Maybe we could see riches come that way. It doesn't even always have to be money. Sometimes those riches in us is when we feel in alignment and feel that joy. Like what we're doing, we're two things. We're in alignment with ourselves and we're in alignment. Normally, we're serving others or the general public. Do you know what I mean? Or the general whole encompassing livelihood of every single thing. Like for me, if I'm doing music, what am I doing? That's for everybody. It's not just for me. My main reason is to have somebody stop for 3 minutes and 20 seconds from their life and listen to this. That's kind of it. So you can step away from the life that you're in. And it could be good or bad. Or let me ride along with you for 3 minutes and 20 seconds while you're joyriding on a road trip.
I like
So
that.
yeah. So gosh, where was I?
Well,
Oh,
and
the
I think,
social media aspect.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where, and it's so hard. those comparators, we're comparing ourselves to others. We're not as successful. We're not as pretty. We don't have those kind of clothes. We don't have that kind of happiness. But does that is that align with us? That's what we need to stop and look at, is like, what do we need? Because we can't always be someone else. Why don't you just let that person be them and you be you? And that sometimes is hard. It is hard because sometimes we're just grasping, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want that quick fix to be happy. They look happy. I'm going to do what they did. I'm going to do this because I want to be happy.
Well, and I think it's one of those, I think there's that aspect. And then I think depending on how a person grew up, if they're trying to figure out what happiness is and what healthy, like living a healthy, financially secure, like we were talking about before, financial security. If a person hasn't ever lived in a financially secure life, they may be more inclined to grasp what these people are saying really convincingly as to what will lead to a financially secure life. And I think the hard parts too, I kind of still struggle with it, but is one that just because a person says it doesn't make it true. It doesn't even mean they actually believe it. So a lot of these people who proclaim on social media that they have these lifestyles, isn't it that they're like leasing the car, or they're standing in front of someone else's car and doing these videos? Like it's not even their vehicle, or they're like renting the house like an Airbnb type of situation to make it seem like they're living in
Like that's their,
luxury.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a fake story. Like, like, so there's that whole aspect too, is that there are people who are being disingenuous, like they're not even living that lifestyle. And then you have the people who have all that money that they're talking about, but they're miserable. I mean, that's why we see all these billionaires making everybody else's lives miserable, because they're miserable. They're still not happy. They have billions of dollars and they're still like, trying to make all the rest of us miserable and have our lifestyles be stripped away and our like rights be stripped away. I mean, they're still not happy. They've got billions of dollars and they're still miserable.
Yeah. And I think two things when you're talking about financial security. Yes, financial security feels safe because we know we're okay, right? But even like the people that are billionaires and millionaires and all that, that's not success. That is not success. That's not what success looks like, because that's just material things. You can't take any of that with you. It's about what you did in this moment that we're gifted. Why we're
What
here.
did you do with that money? Were you like Dolly Parton? Because I tell you what, that is the person who
Mm-mm.
makes money and puts it.
For the
If
greater
there was
good.
ever a person aligned with their Dharma, I think it's all of their Dharmas. I feel like it's Dolly
It's Dolly
Parton.
Parton. Yes, yes, because she puts millions of dollars in for
Makes the world
children's
better.
education, for those books, everything, for environmental things. Yes. Like
So,
that's
yeah.
where money goes for the greater purpose, and not for that
Mhm.
individual purpose, of what I would probably assume majority of millionaires do is just think of themselves.
Millionaires, I've met a couple who I think it goes back to the person too, because I've known people who they happened to be in business at the right time and ended up having the right relationships. So they ended up making a lot of money in their businesses, but some of them treat their employees really well and they give back to the community and they do volunteer stuff. Obviously, others don't. So it's like, I feel like with that, not billionaires, but I feel like first, at least like, sounds weird to say low millionaires. I
Yeah.
don't know. That sounds really weird to say. But I think it depends on with that bracket, it seems like it's kind of like people in general. Like people in middle class, lower class, you're gonna have people who look out for others and people who only look out for themselves. And then people who are honestly, most of us are probably a blend of both, that we do look out for others and we look out for ourselves. Like hopefully we're kind of that blend
Mhm.
of both.
Yeah. Yep. So another thing that they were talking about in this book is fear, Dharma and fear. So living our Dharma doesn't mean that we're living without fear. In fact, it's stepping towards our truer path often activates fear, anxiety, because our ego prefers that familiarity that we've had, even the painful familiarity. So the nervous system, we talk a lot about the nervous system because it's such a huge thing within our body and our everyday life, but our nervous system often interprets change as danger. So when we're coming into alignment with our Dharma, it's like, oh, this is something new. This is something different. So we can have that anxiety come in, a little bit of fear come in, especially if people were brought up in environments where they weren't allowed to be authentic to themselves, authentic for that, I should say, I guess, for ourselves. So when we begin honoring our truth, our Dharma, our reasons to be here, we may respond with that anxiety, and that's okay. Because when we're on that path of growth, we are entering that unknown. We don't know that end thing. This is something new. Like we're stepping away from the norm of what things should do and actually aligning with our Dharma. It might be a little bit scary, but sometimes that scary is okay because you know what? We will be okay, especially if we're aligning up with our Dharma and how we are viewing our Dharma. And that takes work. How we view our Dharma is not about financial stability. It's not about that.
Do you feel like with with the fear and a person feeling fear and how much they do or don't feel that fear and anxiousness? I mean, the change aspect, of course, but we've talked about before too in previous podcasts about how much of that fear and anxiousness is also how much the person's life will change, like relationships, like which relationships they would have to let go of, how their view of the world may change. And, that may be looking at people that they once revered differently as, oh, okay, this person wasn't as great as I thought that they were. Or even the reverse of it could be that there was a person they thought the worst of, and having that shift, they're realizing that that person wasn't as bad as they thought that they were. So, like, do you feel like with the fear and anxiousness and stuff that the level that a person may feel it depends on like their environmental factors and
Mhm.
personal beliefs and community beliefs and things like that that they may have to shift past?
Yeah, and you're spot on with that. That's the degree level of what we
Okay.
may feel is like what we have had in our past, those expectations of us or being vulnerable. That's huge. Being vulnerable, like, okay, we in our mind we thought we were supposed to do this because this is what everybody said, so we're doing it, but then you're like, something's missing. Something's missing. This is what I really want to do. But now I gotta tell everyone else of like, "Oh, hey, I'm doing this, but you know what? But it's still okay. We could still be doing our one thing and we have another thing that we're doing, another part of our dharma." It's like we don't have to give up everything for that one thing or the two things. But I think you're right. I think we do have a tendency to lose relationships because people see us differently or relationships change with family members. Family members may react differently if we go to a certain path of what our dharma is because that was not in alignment with what they expected from us or alignment with their beliefs or whatnot. So yeah, I think it really changes that, has a potential to change that dynamic because we're feeling that some kind of anxiousness now.
Yeah. Well, and imagine for that gentleman who wanted to play music, right? And become more into that, a priest more focused on music. So that may influence where he spends his residency. Is it residency that they call it?
Yeah, I
Where
think
a priest
yep,
is at?
yep.
I apologize if that's not the right way to phrase it, but basically that may influence where he goes. So
Mhm.
that may, and it's not a bad thing, but that acknowledgement of it narrowed his field of where he would or wouldn't go because it needs to incorporate this. So, and again, it's not a bad thing, but I do wonder sometimes if when we limit, like it's important to be specific or to figure out what we want so we can limit our options. But I wonder sometimes too, when we limit our options, especially if we don't feel very confident about our decision yet, it's like, but wait, wait, wait. What if that other option, five rows back, would have been a good idea? Crap.
Yeah.
Do you think it's sometimes that doubt too that can play a role? Like, we don't wanna cut off.
Opportunity.
Yeah, like, we're afraid that there's an opportunity that we're missing by going towards that. Like, it's living our authentic way, but I do wonder sometimes if we kinda trip ourselves up with it.
I think we do.
I'm like yeah.
I think we do. I think we are great trippers of our own selves, walking around every moment of every day.
My camera.
Hey, that's okay.
I can't, I
You know
can't.
what?
Oh, there it goes, okay.
I was gonna say, blast to the past on chest and side. It's those old TVs
It's
with
gonna be like, I just became enlightened.
the Oh, that's funny. Gosh, what was I saying?
'Cause we were talking about how much we trip ourselves up.
Well, yes, we trip ourselves up. We are pros, we all have a trophy. We carry it around with us. The
We're
tripper
dance
trophy.
experts from tripping.
Yeah, so I think we do, and I think that's that we can call it so many things. Scarcity mindset. We think we need to do this because we need to have so much security, safety. We think we have to be this to do this to have. We trip ourselves up all the time. And I guess if we didn't, we would never know where we were being inauthentic. We would never, because if we just came here, never just having a clear blueprint of like, this is what we're doing. Yep. Just going through life, going down this path. I don't think how we carry it and how it weighs is very different. If we actually we did trip ourselves up sometimes or had certain things that made it a little bit harder for us to get in alignment with our Dharma. But boy, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that struggle felt good to get to where you're at.
Do you feel like sometimes too, we're acknowledging how messy life is too? 'Cause and the reason I say that is kinda like, when originally I had opened up a second location, and I didn't have it open long because I was trying to see how it would go. And the whole reason for me to open up a second location was so I could meet a person in the same building who owned a massage school, and I ended up teaching there and ended up going to massage school and getting my massage license. And it was such a roundabout way for me to end up with my massage license, but honestly, I would not have gone to massage school of my own volition. Like when I realized why it all went down the way that it did, I had to be honest with myself of would I have even like done that thing on my own? I'm like, no, I wouldn't have done that.
Mhm.
And so having to be honest with myself about it got me where I needed to go, but I kind of had to like mosey around, do my tangent,
Yeah.
going along my tangent to end at the point that I needed to end at. So do you feel like sometimes like that's what can make life confusing too, is that sometimes our side quests or sometimes something that feels like it's veering us off, it ends up putting us in that better space for our dharma. But that's why it can throw us off too, because it seems so different. Like it doesn't seem like it's the path. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I can get that, and I'm trying to feel what that feels like, and I can see what it looks like from by you saying it, but to feel what it feels like, could it trip us up because we think we're gonna be doing this, but then like, "Oh, we're not doing that, but we needed to do this, but that's
Mhm.
okay." It's like almost yeah, I think don't yeah, be a little bit
So
lighter on ourselves.
well, yeah, that's what I mean with it is
Yeah.
that, like, it's okay to so my other one is that right now I'm in the middle of taking acupuncture courses. I tried acupuncture school back in 2006 or 7, and it didn't work out at that time. It's taken, like, almost 20 years to get to this point, and so, apparently, I knew at some point it was gonna happen, but that was not the right time for it to happen. And of course, all these other things have happened along the way, and now is the right time for it. And it feels right, like you were talking about. But I feel like sometimes when we're in the midst of being on that life path and that part of the life path that is peeling away all of the layers, sometimes it feels really confusing. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It's like,
do,
what am I doing?
but I think a lot of us go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I have gone through that, like, when was doing music production a lot. Like, it's on top of my full-time job. I got burnt out. I was just like, my brain just shut down. It says, "What are you doing, Christina? What
We
do you
got
want
it.
in life?" And then all of a sudden, I take that class, Be Your Own Psychic, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting help. Okay, I'm help trying to figure out where I'm gonna go with my music career." But then,
Yeah.
like what happened with you, it led me down other paths, like Reiki.
Right. You're like, "What does this have to do with music?"
I
I'm
know, and then
going
I'm
it.
like,
I'm following it.
yeah,
Like, it feels right. I'm following it. But what are we doing?
yeah, like I'll question, I'm like, am I supposed to go into like have a business where I'm doing Reiki? Because that's what
Yeah.
we're supposed to do, right? We take these trainings to do this, but I'm like,
Oh,
no, nope, I'm not. And that's okay. At first I thought it was because it's just like, hey, when you go and you do something, aren't you supposed to follow through and still do it? So I'm telling myself I'm not following through. I'm like, wait, I am following through. Because the moment someone reaches out to me and says like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can we do a Reiki session? I'm like, got it. That's why
yeah.
I took Reiki. So like, so that roundabout thing of like kind of what you were saying is what is some of this stuff? Because we put on these things that we're doing, we put on like we're supposed to go a certain way with thing that we do. But that's just a part of our journey. These are extra bonus things that are coming along with it.
Sorry. Well, and I will say when you talk about, like, with Dharma, it sounds like what are you passionate about? And for me, I'm passionate about, like, helping people, like, feel better in some way or not suffer or not be in pain, like, to somehow help them decrease it, or if nothing else, that they don't feel alone. And so I think sometimes too, do they mention? Because I mean, with Jane Goodall, it was about helping animals, which is a very broad topic, and there are so many ways that that can look. Like, how many different ways can that, be expressed? So, do you feel like, or did it talk about in the book about how sometimes maybe a person may be too specific about the Dharma? Like, they may be like, "I wanna help," like Jane Goodall say, for example, "I wanna help animals, but it has to be helping ants located in the Carolinas," like, I mean, obviously, she's helped a lot of animals, but what would her life had looked like if she narrowed the scope to that type of specificity, or to be that specific?
And
Like,
that's where we can
how
get tripped up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think a lot of people do get tripped up and like, hey, wait a minute. I got that basketball scholarship. But wait, I'm really good at volleyball though. That's where
Yeah.
my passion is. But they're like, I'm just going to go for the basketball because I got the scholarship. So it's like um doing what's right and not a specific. And I don't think like a lot of us have a specific because no matter the so many things that we do, like with the healing, making someone feel
Mhm.
good, there's so many different avenues of that. It's almost endless. But as
True.
long as we're in that space and we're creating that space, that's what it is. Yeah. They didn't talk. They haven't yet talked about anything about having a very narrow scope
Or,
of.
like, not doing that to trip yourself up.
Yeah, they haven't talked about that yet because it's more of a broader. Because our
Okay.
dharmas are more of a broader thing.
Well, and I would like that, or I would like to offer too, because for example, motherhood. Like, there's so many different ways that a person can mother other people.
Mhm.
And so, there's that aspect. Or fatherhood. There are many ways that a person can father a person. Or parenthood. There are many ways that a person can parent another. I've got a buddy that they, like, at work, they call her mom because she nurtures people. Part of, like, she's a really good leader. She holds people accountable and stuff, but she's also very nurturing, very compassionate, very understanding. And so, she's by just being an amazing leader, she has reparented multiple people who needed an authority figure who was healthy and safe.
Yeah, and, like,
Like,
that's part of her dharma.
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah,
to be a leader of this business. No, it was that broader thing of creating space, a safe space for those people and nourish them for the things that they may have not had or were depleted. Yeah. Yeah, because I think, like Dharma is so many different things. Like I have a list here that could be raising
Ooh,
children
give the
consciously.
give the
Yeah,
list.
yeah,
Okay.
creating children.
I mean,
That just goes apart. Raising children consciously, and that's creating a safe space for them, nurturing them. You know, kind of like Jane Goodall's mother, nourish her instead of like because she went missing for hours and she was sitting in a coop so she could figure out how an egg comes out of a hen. Her mother didn't yell at her for why she was gone for hours. She's like, she was in excitement for her daughter to been, she's seen how excited Jane was, you know, and not of like, you scared me. You were gone for hours. We thought you got kidnapped. You know, it's that approach. It's the approach. Anyways, raising children consciously, creating art. That could be any forms, creating art, healing trauma. So healing trauma. And that's why sometimes our dharmas may come from suffering, and it may come from suffering that we have gone through traumas that leads us to our dharma. So if you think of people like in addiction, they went through that suffering in their own body, and then they sometimes come out on the other side. Now they're healing others because they know what it felt like. Now they're, you know, so that's why I'm saying it, our dharmas can come in many different forms, and it comes to us in many different forms. So serving community, we talked a little bit about that. So serving others, basically. Teaching, advocating for others. Like that's a dharma. Protecting nature, Jane Goodall. That's what she does. She was protecting nature. She was bringing science to us of what's going on in those rainforests, helping people feel seen. How amazing is that? Could
that's
you
so
imagine
important.
helping people feel seen in a very invisible world? Like, wow, that's a task.
Well, and one of the things that it comes up, actually helping people feel seen, if you think about it, a fun way that we may not first think about are boudoir photos. So a boudoir
It's a
photographer.
boot.
Boudoir, that's like
I'm picturing,
lingerie.
oh, I was just picturing
Yeah.
like the UK 1876 photos.
I mean, you could. That could be another thing, like,
Okay.
if a person wants to feel seen like that. But basically, like, photographers, that helping people feel seen, maybe in an area or an avenue that they typically don't feel seen or don't feel able to express themselves.
Yeah.
So you have the art aspect, but you also have the helping a person feel seen, which I feel like art, and we've talked about that, I think, before, kinda how art and that people feeling seen, they kind of intertwine a lot.
Yeah. And people feeling seen. I think helping people feel seen also is, it could be simple. It could be as simple as that person sitting on the curb that's been sitting out there for 2 days, and you just go up and say hi while everybody else just passed them. You seen that person. You had a conversation with that person. They felt seen. It could be simple as that, as to someone that's a therapist, helping someone like, I see you. I understand you. You're not alone. I see you.
I think too with relationships, like friendships, community, what I've noticed too is that if you remember and ask questions about something that a person felt excited about or that was going on in their lives, because I do my best to try to remember key points, about each individual person. Sometimes it takes me a while to remember their name, but I'll remember, like, the hobbies that they really enjoyed or whatever topic it was that they brought up. Like, I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, how was that going?" And they're like, "You remembered that?" And I'm like, "Well, it was really important to you, like, you were really excited about it or whatever with it." Like, that moment is them feeling seen and you're remembering them.
Mhm.
Like, and they get to realize that you remember them.
And that is reciprocated as being seen. I've
Mm,
been seen.
oh,
And I think that is such a thing. I think a lot of people don't feel seen. And I think like the steps that you are taking to recognize certain backgrounds of people's, it's always like, I know you. I see you. Um, that's such a crucial thing, and it is a trait some people don't have because they're too
Well,
busy thinking
and
about other things where they don't think about the person in front of them or the people around them, kinda like the phone. Like, I don't like cell phones. If I'm around somebody, I will never be on my phone unless I'm looking something up because I'm distracted from the moment that I'm creating with them, whatever that is.
I feel like for some, it is a very busy life, and I feel like people don't know what they don't know. Because I was not always like that, right? I learned over time, and it's been a lot of trial and error because I was definitely very socially awkward and not very good with social patterns and things like that. So I think, like I said, you don't know what you don't know, and we kinda emulate what is around us, like, we emulate what we're around the most, and so if the family dynamics, people were always very distracted or not engaged, then we're gonna emulate that behavior and take that as normal, and so, I think that's kinda like you were talking about before about wasn't it one of the things conscious parenting?
Mhm.
And so we kinda have to consciously parent ourselves too about, "Hey, this is an area that I'd like to improve on." And so how can I do that? And let me pay attention to people who are good communicators or even trial and error of let me try this and see how the person reacts. Okay, they reacted like this. And you know what? Multiple people are reacting this similar way. And it was again the one that I've seen the most that people react positively towards is you remember something about them that they really enjoyed, really like talking about, they were really passionate about, and you ask them about it whenever you see them again. "Hey, how's this doing? Hey, how's this?" Like, how did that event go that you went to? Or how was your trip? How was your class? You know, like talking about that sort of stuff. So yeah, busyness, and then like I said, I will say I feel like a lot of people they just don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
They don't
They
know
don't
what they
know
don't
that
know.
they don't know. And
Yeah,
that's okay,
and that's
because I
okay.
didn't know either.
Yeah, and it just comes over time, things like that, and we can change that on our own. We can change those patterns that we want to change for ourselves on our own by seeing other things that are around. And what
Yeah,
does it feel like? What does it feel like for the other person? Yeah, so we can change patterns.
we can do it.
We can do it.
Wake up.
So, okay, well, I'm getting close to the end. So, I wanted to also talk about practical ways to begin looking and discovering what our dharma is. Oh, one of or even reconnecting with our dharma. So we may have been connected with it younger in our younger age. That's usually what happens. So before we before I list these little things, the number one thing I think, if we can go back from the age of 3 to 7, just look at that time frame. What lit you up as a little kid? What was the thing that you felt most connected with of all times? That is a good starting point to find out what your dharma is between 3 and 7. So we'll just leave that there. Everyone can just sit and reflect on that later of like, what was that? And just look at it. Sometimes it could be those little things that we didn't really realize that were our dharma. But okay, so here, pay attention to what consistently calls us. So, what themes keep returning to our life? What subjects fascinate us? And what kind of conversations light us up? So that's a way of kind of narrowing down like what is our dharma or reconnecting to our dharma is pay attention to what consistently calls to us. Music, healing, nature. So I got it. I got him.
What can I add a caveat real quick?
Yes.
We are not including your ex people.
What do you
Not a
mean?
person that keeps coming back, like, keeps calling. We're not talking about
Yeah.
exes here.
No, we're not
I'm
talking
totally
about that.
joking.
No,
We're not
not
we're
really
not
talking
talking
about
about
any
ex
people. Nope, we're not talking about people at all, just what
we're not talking about dating patterns. If the
no,
certain negative type comes back, that's not a dharma, that's
no,
a
that is just a
g
part of life.
going to yeah,
That is a
go
part of
go
life.
to a professional, figure out the patterns, things like that.
Yep, and figure out where they grew from and figure out where you can break them.
It's like, they are not your dharma. Just sorry, wanted to add that caveat.
Glad you added that in. Okay, and also notice what drains us versus what nourishes us. So that's another way we can see what our Dharma is or reconnecting what our Dharma is just by noticing what drains us versus what
Well,
nourishes us.
with what drains us, how would that apply? I get what nourishes us, how that applies to how we can figure out our dharma. What about the draining? Does that mean you look at the opposite?
Yeah, what drains us of our energy?
Or
You
is
know
it
what?
just that's not your dharma? Or is it more of
You
that,
know
like,
when it's not your Dharma because it drains
okay,
your energy.
okay,
Yeah, kinda
okay,
like I
that
would say,
yeah.
like, if your 9 to 5 job doesn't line up with your Dharma, it probably is a little bit draining,
Mhm.
right? So that would be one thing I would look at. Um,
Okay. That makes more sense that just lets you know that's probably not in alignment with your dharma, or you need to reconfigure it,
yes.
like what we were talking about before of maybe change the instrument. Like, maybe it's the right area, but you need to change, like, some aspect of it.
Yeah. You could even be a musician, you're like, "But wait a minute, I really love writing.
Mhm.
I wanna write a
Well
memoir, or I wanna write a fictional book, TV
well,
script."
isn't it that Enya, phenomenal artist, phenomenal, she does not do in-person concerts. Like, she loves doing studio music, and that's okay, but that's her being alignment with her dharma, because it could be that, and I don't know, I've never met her or spoken to her, but it could be that live, it could be draining,
Mhm. Like, she
you
doesn't
know?
like that aspect of it.
Yeah, so that's one of those another example of that nuance, just in case a person is like, "But I'm really convinced it's music. I'm really convinced it's music, but I feel really drained." Well, maybe look at that stuff, like, look at studio versus in person versus you were talking about production before, like, and then the genre of music, like, does the person like the genre they're working with, or do they prefer a different one? Like, there's, like, just in case a person really feels they're on that right thing, but it still feels draining, they may need to go to a different avenue of that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That is you're spot on. Spot on right there. Oh, okay, and then another thing is to reconnect with our dharma or to find it if we feel lost from it, is spend time in silence. So silence, when we spend time with ourselves, because our intuition is quiet. So if we're living in a loud world, we're just going through the motions. So I think if we can spend time in silence, and of course, nature will never do
I'm
wrong.
so I am so shocked you brought up nature. I am
I know.
shocked. I can't believe it. Go hug a tree
But
that does
for
not have
me
poison oak on it.
but for me, like, that is a part of silence,
Mhm.
is being out in nature, for me.
Well, and figuring out for each person what type of nature, because I think we talked about before, there are people who may feel nervous in the woods. Well, go to a park. If you feel nervous in a park, or if you live in a city, maybe if you're able to walk around a flower shop,
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
like
Whatever calls to you.
botanical garden. Yeah.
Yep. And also heal the belief that you must earn your worth. So we're just talking about self-worth. So we gotta
Yes.
heal that part.
And that's a big one.
That is a big one. And that when we feel like we are worthy, we will gravitate or reconnect to our dharma. Because that self-worth, that just comes into this human mind that we're living in is self-worth and not being seen. So those are two huge things. So once we can kind of mellow those out, work on those to heal, we can get better aligned with our dharma. There's another one here, let purpose evolve. So just let it evolve. Sometimes we may think it's something else. Don't try to force it. Just let it come to us. We don't need to have it all figured out. Like for me, it's music. There could be 1,000 different things for it.
That's a big topic.
Yeah. So I'm not going to pick that one narrow-minded thing. I'm like, you know what? It could be anything.
You could do underwater music, you just don't know.
I'd go into people's pools and create underwater music for them.
Exactly. I'm just saying,
I don't think I would.
don't limit yourself.
That doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel aligned with who I am. Yeah. No, that plus it's going to be hot outside. I don't like the heat. No.
That's why you gotta be underwater.
Yeah, true.
I'm so
Okay.
grateful that you get my humor.
Yeah.
or that you roll with it.
I roll with it and I get it. All right. So that's kind of where I wanted to just talk about today was our Dharma. Yeah. Oh,
I do have one more question with it. So, do you feel like if a person is in alignment with their dharma, that it helps them not be as easily swayed or manipulated or convinced to go a different path? Did they talk about that at all? Once a person feels aligned with their dharma.
I think they did when they were talking about the priest because they did
Yeah.
the opposite. They talked about the opposite. It was like, this is what it feels like when you don't go with it, with
Yeah.
your dharma. But even I could assume that uh, I could assume for what it feels like for me when I know when I'm in alignment, like nothing can really steer me past that.
Yeah, that's what I mean is that
Yeah, nothing
it's
can really steer because I'm like, mm-mm.
yeah, so maybe that could be another do you feel like that could be another cue for a person when it comes to maybe figuring out the nuance of their dharma? If they feel like there's still a little bit of a sway to it, that can kinda help them indicate, well, maybe you're kind of on the right path with it, but you just kinda need to play around with it, like what exactly that looks like, and it may be we were talking about music. So again, it may be about shifting instruments or shifting genre, like you're still on the path. But if people are kind of swaying, if a person is feeling swayed with it, then that may be a cue for them to explore that. And not that doesn't mean, of course, throwing it away, but it may be, oh, okay, because that's what it seems like, or what I've experienced too, when I feel like there's something that is my life path. It feels like you're not gonna convince me otherwise, is what I have felt, like 10 toes down,
Yeah,
like, "Nope, this is it."
like you feel grounded into your thing.
Yeah, like, I feel comfortable with it, and when I see other people doing things differently, I still think it's wonderful, and I'm cheering them on, I'm glad that you have found the best way to express your life, or you found a path that you're really enjoying now, and I don't feel the need to emulate that. So another pro to finding your dharma.
Yep. All right. So I think that's kind of all I have is just allowing us to become who we are and not someone else. And if we feel like we were close to who we were, it's okay. We can return back to ourselves and not be hard on ourselves if we did stray away, because that's not what it's about. We acknowledge it. We just bring ourselves back to whatever feels alignment with us and what we feel our soul yearns for and when it smiles. Yeah. And just understanding the incredible power that it has when we do feel in alignment and how we feel. Yeah. So check out this book. It's also an audiobook. So if you have Spotify, you can listen to it for free. They give you so many hours a week, but very good book, very excellent book. So I highly recommend it. I will leave the information on this in the show notes for this book.
And what was it called again?
It is called Stephen Cope, The Great Work of Your Life.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine.